You know what I mean? Because they were pastors.
Hmm.
Pastors don't have a lot of money because they give everything away.
Yeah.
So I can get paid. I know it. I should have been getting something because they paid a piano player, but I didn't get paid
Mhm.
from none of those.
Hmm. All
Now I'm
right, that
looking
makes
back. I
sense.
should have. Huh?
So
I should have. That
that's
was
that's
really
a lesson
stupid
for
of me.
future.
Huh?
That's a lesson for future.
Well, their future, it helped theirs, not mine.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Okay, so
Yeah.
you also mentioned that you implemented community outreach initiatives, right? And you restructured the hospitality team. Again, what kind of community outreach initiatives did you implement? I would love to know about some of the specific outreach
Okay.
campaigns or initiatives that you took.
Yeah. Outreach like feed. I had got a food drive up together, began to feed the people in the lower economic areas, like the slums or the projects, and people would run out of food towards the end of the month. So me and another lady, we delivered food to those areas. That was community outreach. We weren't
Mm-hmm.
scared. We should have been, but we took food into the elderly and young
Mm-hmm.
single women with children.
All right.
And we also, for the hospitality team, we we gave ideas. Like when people are out sick, we made sure they
Mm-hmm.
got cards, money. We checked on them, offered our services like volunteer. Like people if they needed rides to get to where they need to go. We arranged that.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of stuff. We visited the sick and the shut in people in the nursing home. We even did a sock thing. We gave them socks and sung
So
songs
essentially,
to
community
somebody.
outreach and community involvement,
That's
right?
that's all the same.
Hmm. Okay. And what about developing the curriculum for young children and young adults? Again, since this was kind of like a religious aspect, this had a religious aspect to it, right? This specifically developing a curriculum, keeping in view Bible, the teachings of Bible, right? What were your specific strategies to make it more interactive and more impactful for the younger generation?
Well, for the younger generation, you have to be innovative because they get bored.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I would use the same paradigm as I did with teaching school. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would come up with ideas that students would, that young people would like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, like with a skit, act something out or let them partake in acting something out, question and answer, creating a short story from the scripture, utilizing an outline. Like I would have um, one example, like like Jesus and Mary and Joseph. Instead of telling the whole
Mm-hmm.
story to the age of 30, I would break it down, and say how Jesus was born in a manger. Just like how we take the story of
Mm-hmm.
how they say that he's born on Christmas, how he was the perfect gift. And then,
Mm-hmm.
from there we would expound, with the young people, how it's better to give
Mm-hmm.
than it is to receive. It's simple. You break it down simple. And then, you have the little skit, Jesus in a manger, somebody volunteers to be Jesus, and, things like that. And just like how you would see how people present the story now, like on TV or something, we would take whatever that lesson is and break it down. I always use outline. I use maybe like a, I don't go no farther than like to the alphabet of C or D. And I
Mm.
would start off with an opening, you know, um, like if I was doing now, and I would say it's better to give than to receive. And then I might would ask who likes to receive, and I would go through there and I would give something and then talk about it. Did you like receiving it? With kids, it's always something they like, candy or a small toy, and ask them how it feel to receive it. So it's
Mm.
always something innovative,
All right.
with the kids.
Mm.
Something
So you kind of
hands-on and visual.
and practical, right?
Yes,
Okay, that makes sense. And what was the age group of the children or the young adults that came to you, like the rough um, age
they're all
group
different
range?
ages.
So, a
All
rough
different
range,
ages. Um, Probably
average range.
average range for the youth would probably be anywhere from 3 to about 9, and
Mm.
then adults would be completely separate. I wouldn't necessarily have both at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
but
All right.
I would do adults. Adults are a little bit different. You do more lecture, questions,
Mm.
analytical thinking. You ask questions to get their mind stirred, to come against what I say traditional thinking,
Mm.
to get them to think
Mm.
out of the box. Because, like when you're teaching biblical stuff with older people, they think that everything they see in the book is exactly
The
all it is.
same, yeah. Mm.
Yes. And so when I do, I try to get them to understand the morals, the motive, and the intent.
Mm.
Because some of them get hung up on, like one of the scriptures says, um, what was it? Everybody kept going with, turn the other cheek,
Mm.
right? And then somebody else was saying, well, it also says an eye for an eye. And then somebody says, well, you reap what you sow, and so in some of them, they were going back and forth with what the scriptures mean. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, so in order to teach that, you have to think a little bit out the box. And it's like we don't live for an eye for an eye. So you have to
Mm.
break that down and get it to their understanding that if you live eye for eye, you're gonna face the consequences of the land of the
Mm.
law. If and I had to teach that, even to the young people, if you feel like you have the authority to take it in your hands, you're gonna suffer the consequences. And so I focus on teaching the morals and the intent behind those things, because a lot of people just look at it one sided.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So, Yvonne, I was thinking about the childcare excellence position, childcare of excellence, since we discussed this pastor position in quite detail. And your title here is as an owner or administrator, but I was thinking of slightly modifying it to director and administrator, because that'll be more relevant to the positions that you're going to go for.
yeah,
So, would that be fine?
yeah. That's fine.
Mhm. All right. So you were here for a good 6 years. What was the scope of operations of this childcare, as in how big was it, and what activities did it offer? What were the different student or you know uh, age levels that came here that you had to deal with? Just a brief overview of the operations.
Okay. I basically had to do everything.
Sorry to
Because
cut you, Yvonne. Can you speak a bit louder because your voice seems to
I was
come
going
from
out.
like.
Yeah, my headset had went out. Um,
Oh, it's okay.
with that one, I did the HR role, I did payroll, I had to do bookkeeping, I had to supervise staff,
Hmm.
um, and sometimes fill in and supervise students as well. The children that were there, they were from babies up until 12 years old.
All right.
And then I had staff I had to that I was in charge of. So I was responsible for professional development. I was responsible for making sure they met the state guidelines and requirements. Um, I wrote for the a federal grant at that for the child care too. Um, I filled that application out and wrote. It was 150 pages.
Hmm.
The very first application. Um, that was a federal
And
program.
all right, how much grant did you file for or ask for?
Um, I'm trying to think how did it work. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't a lump sum that you get it all at once. You got it every month.
Hmm.
They broke it down every month. Every year you had to apply.
All right, so you had to kind of like renew every year.
Exactly. You had to rewrite
Hmm.
every year, and you had to meet the requirements. And I
Hmm.
also applied for what they call NAPA, and
All right.
it was federal too.
So what
But
was that actually?
it's a grant to help people pay for child care, but it's
All
only
right.
for military.
All right. Mm-hmm.
It's only for military recipients,
Mm-hmm.
and it went off based off of the parents' income.
Okay.
And so that's the best way I can explain that one. I can't remember the numbers for that because it was
Mm.
different for each person. It was different
Okay.
for each parent that came. You know, when I applied, it was based off of the clients that were military.
All right. But you were able to successfully get that for 1 year.
Yes, every
Mm-hmm.
year that I was open, I got it
Mm-hmm.
for
All
both
right.
of them.
And okay. And you mentioned that you had to oversee all the HR activities, including managing the payroll, hiring staff, etc. So, how many new staff members did you hire during your 6 years there?
Um, I don't know. I fired people quite a bit.
Five. All right, that's good. That's
I don't
good.
know how
And
many
you must have
exactly.
also overseen the onboarding and the training, the whole process as well.
I probably not five, but I mean I fired quite a few um, because we had first shift, second, and third shift.
Hmm.
Probably maybe 20 or 30 employees because they
Mm-hmm.
we wrote. You know, you rotate,
Yeah. All right.
and there's a high
Uh,
turnover in child care. So I mean, you know if they do something that they're not supposed to, depending on what it is, if it's something supervision, then they're fired. Then you
all
on to
right.
somebody else. You know what I mean?
Hmm. All right. So you oversaw staff right sizing, you oversaw all the staff operations. Any particular staff trainings that you arranged or gave?
Any particular what?
Staff trainings?
There's a whole lot of
Hmm. I would love to know about all of them.
them. I'm trying to think because it's been a while.
Hmm.
Staff trainings. I've had a lot of them down through the years myself. Um,
Hmm.
let me see if I can look some up right quick.
All right.
Let me see. Staff, definitely time management.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I have to teach them? What you call confrontational avoidance. I had to teach
Mm-hmm.
that. How to recognize how to recognize child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Trying to think of what else. Um, Emergency evacuation. I don't know if that's something that would be needed. And I also had to teach them how to write lesson plans. I wrote lesson plans too for the child care center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think what else we had to teach them.
So, what were the services that you offered at this childcare?
Before and after school care,
Okay.
pick up service, drop off if their parents had transportation problems, we would pick them up. If they didn't have a car, we bring them back.
Mm-hmm. And in terms
Mm.
of like developing the curriculum and everything, that was for day-to-day activities. What kind of
Right.
activities did offer there?
We had lesson plans. We used basically high scope.
Hmm.
Gardner's theory of play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else did we do. Um, we talked about relationship building, appropriate conversations. We had to train them how to interact with parents when they come.
All right.
Mm, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. Playground safety.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And how many children were there on average? Like, how big was the childcare?
um, it's small compared to here because in Georgia everything is huge. Um,
Mm.
we were licensed for I think 60 per shift,
All right. And there were how many shifts? 3 shifts?
3 shifts. And we were open 7 days a week.
All right. So,